So our next one up, single cam turbo. So this one had a couple issues before it actually hit the dyno that we addressed. We were looking over the setup originally, and one thing that stood out was we saw how the IACV, which, let me turn my flash on, or there you go. So I noticed it had like almost a homemade gasket, and then this blow-off valve, it was moved somewhat easy, which is never a good sign. The only leak he really had was this hose. So this hose we replaced, it was actually a clear tube, clear hose type tube, and it was a little bit looser than it should have been. Timing belt was a little bit loose, so we tightened that up. Trying to think what else we did. It's on E85. He drove down here. I think he said he had about a 2-hour drive. So yeah, I'm gonna hop in here. Oh, that was the other thing too. Sorry. Notice that the injectors, which, let me turn that light back on. Notice that the injector seals were almost pushing through. So, and that could be a boost leak. Well, not even a boost leak, that could be a vacuum leak. And, you know, a lot of people forget about that. So we were concerned about that. Oh, and it had a tiny little fuel filter. Very tiny, guys. Don't recommend them at all. I don't care if your setup's all motor or turbo. So we got rid of that. We just put like a union in between. So I'm gonna hop in really quickly. Come with me. So what you're looking at right now are the fuel tables, or more so the tune that he came in with. So if I'm able to save the tune that is running your vehicle, I do so and I back it up just in case. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, I build a tune and I have a tune already set up for your car prior to all your specs. If I go to load your tune, and for whatever reason the car doesn't want to run correctly, and it should, if I can just look at your old tune to see what's going on, you know, it's kind of like you're playing CSI detective. And he drove, I think he said about 2 hours here. He said the car drove good. Now the fueling table has a big hole in it. You got fuel going this way, you got fuel going that way. He said the car did drive good here. He does have a wideband gauge too, so I can only assume he was adjusting this according to the wideband. But a fueling table should never look like this. You know, you have, if you look, so just let me highlight some areas here. So roughly, give or take, the highlighted area is the idle area. So now if you look as you're driving, and I'm trying to look at my phone while I'm doing this, so bear with me. You can see over here while you're driving a little bit that you actually have less fuel as you're driving than at idle. Which, you know, I don't know, but you know, he's not also a tuner, so it is what it is. I'm going to get into it here. I'll actually load my tune up and I'll show you how mine looks. Give me 1 second. And just one other thing I forgot. Another reason why I like to back up the tune that the vehicle came in with. This has a custom map sensor. I was not aware. So if I were just to click a 3 or 4 bar, it wouldn't read correctly. I would have to ask the customer for the custom specs that you can see that has been entered here. Now the whole thing is, if I can't get a hold of him, maybe he doesn't have them quickly, this is just a reason why I back him up. I don't use your tune. I don't start with it. I start with a fresh tune. That way I know exactly what's going on. I know everything is 100%, and nothing in the back half has been messed with that I might not catch. So when guys ask, you know, what tune should they start with, always start with a clean foundation. But this is just an example of why I like to back up the tune. And here's my tune that I built for it. It's all loaded up with the specs of the setup. Should get me fairly close. Yes, it's still going to need to be dialed in, and that's what we're here on the dyno for. But you can see, as you're increasing RPMs, fuel is gradually increasing because, well, you're increasing the air that is entering the engine and the load, in a sense. You're not going to have that much load right there, but, you know, so I don't know why his other tune looks like that, but necessarily it doesn't really mean anything to me. So let's get in and see what we got going on. So it's a little loud because the car is running. We got an air code right off the bat. We got the idle air control valve, which I like to go in and just verify too that it's not working like it should be. So you go under the parameters, and I already have it pulled up. You could adjust this and just see if I'm lowering it, idle should dip, and it doesn't. So I'm assuming the IACV is just not working. Let me shut the car off. So the IACV is not working. I will click this and I will disable it, but I've done other videos too where you should have an IACV, especially if the car is driven on the street. Yes, you could possibly get the car to idle like it is idling right now, but at the same time, as the temperature changes outside, let's say it gets colder, and the idle air control valve would normally add more air to keep the engine alive, you're not going to have that. So I will make a note, let him know. I don't know if he knows. I'm assuming he does know. But I'll let him know that the IACV is not working. So I'm going to get into the tune now. I'm going to dial in everything, and I'll be back. Okay, so what we have going on now, and we've had it before if you've watched my videos, we're getting a very inconsistent air fuel reading, and it does seem to change with temperature. Let the car sit for a little bit, cool down, started it back up. What's happening now is, let's say the tune is fully dialed in, air fuels are where they should be, you shut the car off and you come back after a second or two, or even longer, air fuels are it's almost like the car's never been touched. And the other thing, these are 750 injectors, RCs. I asked them, well, they're older, RC injectors, you don't see them a lot. I asked him, hey, well, what fuel pump is in the tank? And he thinks it's a 255. So I'm assuming that he never checked it. And then I asked him if the injectors were ever tested because, when you purchase these type of injectors, most likely they're used, and he said no. So now here's the thing, and I mentioned that they're 750 because I don't want anybody thinking they're like 2,000 cc's. At idle, I can take out, after the tune's already dialed in, after I start it up then, the car runs super rich, I could take out about 80% of the fuel, still doesn't want to lean out how it should be, and then you have that huge dip / hole in the tune. So as I was showing you his tune and what they had to do, I can only assume, to get to where it should have been, they had that hole. Something is going on here. So I am going to ask him, because the car is on E85. Some guys don't drain the tank all the way. They'll run it low and then they'll just pour in E85, and what happens is you still have 93 in the tank. You're mixing and it's sloshing around. As it's sloshing around, it's, you're getting the weird reading because you don't have straight E85 in it. So I'll be back. So I'm going to pull it off. I was talking to the customer and just, he said the fuel pump hasn't been replaced for about 8 years now. So we're going to pull the pump. We're going to see what we find. I'll report back. I'll get it on the video. It's not going to be right now, so you guys will see it in line because I'll save the videos and whatnot. But I'm going to unstrap it. I'll be back. So I did not get a video of us removing the pump, but I did get some pictures, and well, you can see how old it is. So strapping it on for round 2 here, got the new fuel injectors in, got the new fuel pump in, and now I didn't get a video of the first time underneath, but I'm just showing you guys. And the customer, well, he's well aware. I'm sure he did this, but like the brake line stuff, and we note stuff like this too, how the brake lines are rubbing, they're not secured. That's one thing. I'm gonna add though. You see that wire in the back there, and you can, my camera, there you go, it finally focused. But assuming that's a power wire, assuming how it's zip tied, and I'm going to assume that there's no fuse on it. Like, I don't know if people understand like how unsafe things can be and how unsafe quickly things can get. Actually, let me rephrase that. How bad things can go from 0 to 100 quickly if, you're talking about a brake line malfunctioning, you're talking about if that's a power wire with no fuse, maybe rubbing on something and catching fire. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And maybe I just sound old preaching, but you guys got to really take safety into consideration here when you're taking these cars out on the street. Not only are you risking your car and yourself and anybody else in your car, but you got other people too on the road that you got to be considerate of. And I don't know, it is what it is. So round 2 coming up here. We're gonna see what it wants to do and go from there. So air fuels seem a lot better now, a lot more consistent. As we're getting into boost now, there's a couple things that I'm noticing. One, I'm noticing that the dump tube is actually smoking a little bit at idle, but more so without boost. So I have a feeling that the fire ring, which goes between the valve and the wastegate and the manifold to help seal it, well, that's what actually seals it. It doesn't help seal it. Starting to think that's leaking a little bit, and we're getting some overboost, and this is cranked all the way down. So I'm gonna disconnect this. I don't know, never seen this brand before. I'm gonna disconnect this, simply take it out of line. I know what wastegate spring is in here. It's on his sheet inside, and we're gonna see if we still hit boost creep, and if we still hit boost creep, then, well, I'll be back on that one. So you can see I simply disconnected it. I will add, you should always have, for the fuel pressure regulator under here, you should always have a separate vacuum going to that. As for, like, if it was teed in with the blowout valve and or let's say, a boost gauge, that would be fine, but you don't want to risk anything here, getting the wrong reading to the regulator. So if you're running out of vacuum sources, well, a vacuum block would be ideal. Let's see if it wants to hit boost cut. So I figured I'd knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. The temperature, what I was trying to show you guys, it does not want to climb down. So it was at 206 for a while. I was staring at it before I decided to take the phone out and show you guys. Keeping in mind, the hood is open, so we got all that heat coming out of it. His fan is on, and so are the dyno fans. So I suspect this car to run hot, and if not overheat on the street if it were driven like this. Boost, the boost controller is removed. No more boost cut. It's holding like it should. It's got a 10-pound spring in it. We're seeing about 2 pounds of boost creep, roughly, give or take. So far, so good. We're climbing up to the power goal that he wants to hit. We're going to see if we can achieve that. and go from there. I'm going to get some videos of the pulls. I'll be back, fill you guys in some more. So, things are going pretty good. As I'm climbing in the RPM now, starting to have a slight issue. And before people jump to conclusion and just say, are the spark plugs gapped? Let me explain what's going on here. So the RPM pickup for the dyno and how the dyno reads RPM, which then can read torque, is clipped on new spark plug wire number 1. Higher up in the RPMs, what I'm seeing is not only the RPM get all crazy, which if it was just that, okay, we can say there's some interference, the dyno's not picking it up correctly, whatever, but we're seeing it also with the power. The power is starting to get all crazy right around the time, actually, let me rephrase that, exactly around the time the RPM starts getting weird. So, I don't want people, this is not spark blowout where the spark plugs need to be gapped tighter. I'm going to gap them a little bit tighter. I don't think it's going to fix our issue. This comes down to more so the distributor. But at the same time, it can also come down to electrical stuff. When I say electrical stuff, I basically mean the grounds. This is why it's really important that everything is up to par. His electrical is not the greatest, as I was documenting it in a sense. You got a lot of wires. You got a lot of wires that are just cut and hanging and taped, and I really don't want to even touch any of the stuff going on over here, because I don't know, I've seen it a lot where these have electrical tape on them, but are they just twisted together? I don't know. But this is where stuff like that comes down to it. And I will also add, as I was stating, that we're seeing a ton of guys now, and I'm not saying this car looks like it still has the OEM harness. I'm looking at just the condition and whatnot, but we see a lot of guys now that are having electrical issues. And it comes down to, well, what engine harness are you running? And they always repeat back, they usually repeat back, well, I'm running a Carrot Top, or a Jack Spana, or an Amazon one. Then you throw that in the equation. Are you having an issue because of your harness? So, this issue we're seeing, is it a distributor issue? Is it that the electrical is just not up to par? The spark plug wires look new, and they're NGK blues, so we can rule that out. What's going on inside the distributor? Is the cap and rotor fresh? It's a trickle-down effect. And so many guys, I see it on a daily basis. Hey, is this harness good? Is this harness good? Is this distributor good? If you're buying parts from Amazon, and the parts seem like a really good deal, let's say everybody sells a quality engine harness. We run Rywire a ton. Never really had issues with them. I've been running them for now 20 years or so. Rywire budget harness, I think, is $4.99 off the top of my head. A good quality harness is going to cost you some money. $4.99. It's not super expensive, but it's not cheap. So then if you see somebody on Amazon selling a harness for $100, $120, start thinking, guys. Start thinking, because it's a trickle-down effect, and you can save money on the build. But if these parts start to fail, and then people have to diagnose it, if I can't figure out this issue here, we're going to have to stop. I'm going to tell them not to bring it up above a certain RPM where I'm having this issue. So you got to understand and think ahead. And yes, it's very simple concept, and it's the whole measure twice, cut once type deal. Buy quality parts once, you won't have to buy them again. But you also have to think all about the trickle down effect. What else can it affect? What else am I going to possibly be fighting with and whatnot? And little stuff like this all adds up. So I just want to come back really quick and add, I have seen and heard tuners where if you go back in this video and you remember when we were having that boost cut issue and this is not working correctly. Some tuners will just simply take the car off the dyno and tell you to figure it out. Now, I like helping people. You can consider it being nice, but don't take advantage of people's niceness. You know, it's to a point where I can only do so much. We're going to still try to figure out this spark issue that we're having, or whatever you want to call it. But you got to keep in mind that some tuners aren't like me. Some tuners don't like the help. You know, I've said it before, I have cars that I can't finish on the dyno, but I still help you when you take it home and you're trying to troubleshoot it yourself to save money. Not everyone's like me, and I'm not saying that they need to be. You know, you could probably ask some people and they'd probably say, hey, you spend way too much time helping people. I've been doing this for 24 years or so, and my enjoyment is helping others. It truly is. But we gotta build better, people. Okay, so bottom line is torque, power. And you can see how it's not smooth. Now this was a run after I let it cool down a little bit, took a lunch, and you can see that's not normal. And it doesn't change as I add timing into the tune. But let's take a look at a run after it is heat soaked for a little bit. Remember what I said. The dyno RPM is read through the spark plug wire. Look what's going on here. Look what's going on to the torque, because that's how it figures it out. So, and of course the power too. That's not normal. Now, if you've watched my videos in the past, you might have heard me, or maybe it's clicking in your head where I say something about boost flutter, where the wastegate's opening up and closing. It's not happening on this. It's not happening on this car. This car is actually boost creeping more than I was suspecting it to boost creep. So on the data log, boost is climbing, so should power, and it should be smooth. So once again, this is after the car's been heat soaked. And now the other problem too, and this is after it's not heat soaked, the other problem I'm facing is after the car is heat soaked and I do a pull and I let it cool down and I try to go start it up again after letting it idle a little bit and then, you know, shut it off, start it up, it doesn't like to restart. Which this to me is all indications that something's going on internally with the distributor. Now I will add this. We're pretty close to his power goal. I would have to up the boost a little bit more. And here's the problem. So if we're having the internal issue with the spark, which I believe we are, what's going to happen now when I up the boost? And let's just say we have a weaker spark. Well, we can face possibly spark blowout. We can face an issue where the pressure in the cylinder rises. And what's going to happen in that point? Well, a bunch of stuff could happen. And that's where I'm going to draw the stopping point. I don't want the head to lift. I don't want a sleeve to possibly crack. Yeah, we're fairly close to his horsepower goal. But at the end of the day, I got to do what I feel is safe for the setup. And that's what it is. So hopefully during this whole process, and I was trying to be more thorough, and yes, this video is going to be a little bit longer, trying to explain to you guys to see what can possibly go on during a dyno tune. And this happens a lot of places. It's just not here, but you're seeing it firsthand. You're seeing behind the scenes, and that's what I really want to capture. A lot of guys just see the after pulls. A lot of guys just see on the internet, well, this car made such and such power. Here, look at this video of the power pull. You don't see what it possibly takes to get there. And at the same time,
you'll see some companies that are pushing products that they make a good amount of money on, but at the end of the day, they cause problems. And I personally believe you have a car where it's making good power, or at least that's what the video claimed when somebody posted it, and somebody sees something on that car and they're like, well, if that car made the power, why can't I run something like that? You know, a lot of these guys too, they claim that they're running certain parts. They're not. Like, we're talking about the bigger cars, the bigger cars. So it is what it is. I just wanted to give a little bit more of an insight. That's what I try to plan on doing with these videos. Thanks for watching.